All right, everyone, get comfortable. Maybe dim the lights a little bit.
Yes, settle in.
Right. If you're driving, obviously, just settle into the lane, keep your eyes on the road. But if you're at home, grab your tea or whatever your late-night beverage of choice happens to be. We are going really deep tonight, but we're doing it with a very specific vibe.
We certainly are. And tonight feels a little different, doesn't it? It's not just the content itself. It's the whole texture of the source we're looking at.
It really does. It feels less like a rigid lecture hall and way more like a late-night conversation you have with a friend. Like when you're both overly tired, the world is quiet, and suddenly you feel like you're on the verge of solving the mysteries of the universe.
That is exactly the vibe.
Yeah.
Relaxed, open-minded, and just ready to explore.
So welcome back to the deep dive. Just a quick heads up before we jump into the rabbit hole, and this is important. This deep dive is distributed free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We're here to learn, to explore, and frankly, just to have a good time doing it.
Absolutely. And today we're looking at something really special. We are cracking open the early sessions, book 7 of the Seth Material.
Oh, yeah.
Specifically, we're zooming right in on session 328.
Session 328. Let's set the time and place for everyone. This was recorded on March 22, 1967.
A Wednesday night in Elmira, New York.
Right. And for those of you who want to follow along, because we know you love to check our homework and dive into the source material yourselves, this material is published by the New Awareness Network.
It is.
You can find this exact session and honestly a lifetime supply of mind-blowing reading over at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions.
Highly recommended. Rick Stack and the team over there do incredible work keeping this material available and keeping the archives pristine. If you want the real deal, that is where you go.
Okay, so what's the mission for this deep dive? Because I looked at the transcript for this session, and I have to be honest with you, on paper, it looks incredibly short.
It is short. I mean, in terms of word count, it's a blip on the radar compared to some of the marathon sessions Seth delivers later on in the material.
It's like blink and you miss it short. I'm pretty sure I've written grocery lists longer than this session.
Yeah, but that's actually why it's so perfect for us to unpack today. Because sometimes the most profound, reality-shattering concepts aren't delivered in a 3-hour academic lecture. Sometimes they're just dropped in a quick 15-minute chat while the medium has a runny nose.
Let's talk about that context, actually, because it really grounds everything we're about to discuss. We are dealing with interdimensional wisdom, channeled through Jane Roberts, who Seth refers to as Ruburt. And on this particular night, the vessel of infinite wisdom has a head cold.
Exactly. It really humanizes the whole experience. You have this entity, Seth, who claims to be an energy personality essence, no longer focused in physical reality.
Right.
He's entirely outside of time and space, totally eager to explain the mechanics of how we create our world. And then you have Jane, who probably just wants to take some aspirin, grab a box of tissues, and go to sleep.
Even interdimensional channels get the sniffles. It actually makes me feel a lot better about my own lack of productivity when I'm sick. I mean, if I have a cold, I'm barely functioning enough to watch cartoons, let alone channel a metaphysical book.
It should make you feel better.
Okay.
But here is the roadmap for our discussion tonight. Despite the cold and despite the brevity, Seth manages to deliver a massive aha moment. We're going to talk about what it means to be a tourist in reality.
I love the tourist concept. It explains so much about how I feel on Monday mornings, honestly.
Right. We're also going to talk about why other dimensions look so weird to us, why they seem dreamlike or unstable. And finally, we're going to unpack what I think is one of the best analogies in the entire Seth material, the radio analogy.
Oh man, the radio analogy. It completely flipped a switch for me regarding how I interpret my own perceptions. It's one of those concepts where once you hear it, you just can't unhear it.
It's a tool for critical thinking that you can use literally every single day. It changes how you view conflict, how you view confusion, and how you view the unknown.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the setup. We mentioned it was short. How short are we talking here?
The session starts at 9:1 p.m. exactly, and it ends at 9:1 p.m.
16 minutes.
16 minutes.
I take showers longer than that. I definitely scroll social media longer than that without learning a single useful thing.
Well, they had a busy schedule. They had a session planned for the upcoming weekend for some friends, Claire Crittenden and Pat Norelli. So between the weekend plans and Jane's head cold, Seth kept it brief.
But Seth being Seth, he couldn't just say, get well soon, see you Saturday.
No, of course not. He explicitly says, I did want to make a point, however. He's exactly like that teacher who sees the bell is about to ring, everyone is packing up their bags, but he goes, wait, this is going to be on the test. Sit down.
And thank goodness he did, because the point he makes is about projection environments. Now, we need to define our terms here because the word projection can mean a lot of different things in psychology. What are we actually talking about in the Sethian context?
He's talking about out-of-body experiences. Astral projection. The concept that human consciousness is not trapped inside the physical skull, but is actually mobile. It can leave the physical body and explore other systems or dimensions.
Okay. So the classic idea, you leave your body, you float out the window, and you go explore. But usually when people talk about this, they talk about how wild and trippy it is.
Precisely. And that's exactly the issue Seth wants to address here. A lot of people, when they have these experiences or even really vivid lucid dreams, they report that the environments they visit don't look real. They look dreamlike or fuzzy, or they're constantly shifting.
Right, like a Salvador Dali painting, clocks melting, walls breathing, things morphing into other things. You try to read a book in a dream and the letters just scramble.
Exactly. And because of that visual instability, we have this really intense bias. We think, oh, it's just a hallucination. It's not stable. It's not physical. Therefore, it's not real.
We judge it purely by Earth standards. Like if I can't knock on it and hurt my knuckles, it doesn't exist. We're very tactile creatures.
We are materialists at heart. And this is where Seth drops the first bomb of the evening. He says, quote, "Some projection environments will not appear physical to you, and therefore will seem to lack the characteristics of reality."
So he's validating the experience. He admits, yes, it looks fake to you, but then he flips it on us entirely.
He does. He says, and this is the key quote, "We need to really sit with your own system. Has those characteristics only to those entirely focused within it."
Whoa, okay, hold on. Let's pause there and really dissect that sentence. Your own system has those characteristics only to those entirely focused within it. So he's saying this table I'm sitting at, this microphone, the walls of this room, they only feel solid because I am hyper-focused on them.
Yes. He goes on to say, you give stability and coherence to your own system. It does not have these characteristics on its own.
That is, I mean, is that terrifying or amazing? It sounds like he's describing a collective hallucination, but one that's so consistent we just call it physics.
It's the ultimate home field advantage. Think about it. We think physical reality is this solid, objective rock that exists whether we're here or not. We think the universe is a container, and we're just little marbles rolling around inside it. Seth is saying no. The container is fluid. The stability, the coherence, the rules of physics that seem so unbreakable, we are generating that stability by our collective focus.
So without us staring at it, without us believing in it, Earth is just as wobbly as a dream.
It would completely lack the characteristics we attribute to it. It wouldn't be physical in the way we understand physical. It implies that consciousness comes first, and matter is just the result of consciousness focusing really intensely.
That reminds me heavily of quantum physics, like the observer effect, the idea that nothing really chooses a state until you measure it or look at it.
It's very similar, though Seth takes it much, much further. He suggests this is a universal principle across the board. Every dimension works this way. The inhabitants focus on their reality, and it becomes solid for them.
So if an alien from the astral plane came to Earth and they weren't focused like we are, would they see us as ghostly and shifting?
Very likely. They might float right through New York City and think, wow, this place is a chaotic mess, nothing is solid here, just like we think about their world.
That is a massive perspective shift. It relativizes everything. It means there's no true reality out there, just the reality you're currently tuned into.
And this leads directly to his next point, which is the tourist metaphor. When we leave our body and go to another dimension, Seth says, you will only be tourists.
I love that line so much. You will only be tourists. It's so dismissive, but also so incredibly accurate.
Think about what a tourist actually is.
Yeah.
Really break down the psychology of a tourist for a second.
Okay, a tourist. Someone in a loud Hawaiian shirt with a camera, standing in the middle of a busy sidewalk looking totally confused. They're usually blocking traffic. They're looking at a map on their phone, spinning in circles.
Right. But deeper than that, a tourist is someone who lacks context. They don't know the language, they don't know the customs, they don't know the subtle social rules that everyone else takes completely for granted.
They don't know that you don't order a cappuccino after 11 a.m. in Italy, or that you don't tip in Japan. They are constantly making faux pas.
Exactly. And if you go to a foreign country and you don't understand the rules, things can seem really chaotic to you. You might say, why is everyone driving on the wrong side of the road? Or why is the food so weird?
This place makes no sense. It's disorganized.
But the place makes perfect sense. It makes sense to the locals. You are the one who was out of sync. You're the anomaly in the system.
So applying this to the metaphysical side of things, when we go out of body and we see a world that looks melted or chaotic, we are just like the tourist complaining about the food.
Yes. Seth says legitimate projection environments are as real as the physical environment.
Yeah.
Just because you, the tourist, can't perceive its stability doesn't mean it isn't stable for the inhabitants.
That requires a huge slice of humble pie. It means our entire definition of what is real is incredibly self-centered.
It's highly anthropocentric. We assume our mode of existence, matter, gravity, linear time is the universal gold standard. Seth is telling us we're just one station on the dial, and when we visit another station, we shouldn't expect it to play our music.
This actually explains a lot about high strangeness accounts. You know, people who see UFOs or ghosts, and they report that the physics just seem wrong. The craft moves in ways that shouldn't be possible, or the ghost walks right through a wall. Maybe they're just operating on their local rules, and we are seeing the clash of two different operating systems.
That is a perfect way to put it. It's an operating system incompatibility. You're trying to run an iOS app on a Windows 95 computer. It's going to crash, or at least look really weird.
Okay, speaking of operating systems, we're going to get to the radio, but first I really want to talk about the weirdness. Because Seth gets into the actual mechanics of why these other places look distorted. It's not just a cultural misunderstanding. There's a mechanism involved.
Right, because it's not just a matter of culture shock. There is a
Yeah.
physics to it, a kind of metaphysical physics.
Metaphysical physics, I like that. It sounds like a college course I would definitely fail, but I'd enjoy the lectures.
It probably would be a tough class. Seth mentions magnetic vibrations here.
Ooh, sounds technical. Now, I have to say, whenever I hear the word vibrations in spiritual circles, I get a little skeptical. It's used so loosely it can mean almost anything. Does Seth actually define this?
In the broader context of the Seth Material, vibrations usually refers to the rate of intensity of consciousness. It's not necessarily a physical shaking like an earthquake. It's more like a frequency. Think of it like a hummingbird's wings. They move so fast they appear solid or even invisible.
Okay, so different realities vibrate at different speeds.
In a sense, yes. Seth says vast differences of magnetic vibrations are concerned here. And the problem is, when you project your consciousness into a new system, you have to maintain a certain vibratory rate to perceive that system clearly.
Okay, so it's like trying to stand on a surfboard. You have to keep your balance or you just fall off.
That's a great analogy. The locals, the entities that actually live in that dimension, are automatically attuned to those vibrations, just like we are automatically attuned to Earth. You don't have to concentrate to keep the floor solid under your feet.
Yeah.
You don't have to wake up in the morning and meditate for 20 minutes just to make sure gravity works.
No, thankfully. That would be exhausting. I have enough trouble just making coffee in the morning. If I had to consciously hold the atoms of the kitchen together, I'd starve.
Exactly. It's automatic for us. But in a projection environment, you do have to concentrate. You're manually driving a stick shift in a world of automatics. And Seth says it is difficult for a projector to maintain the steadiness necessary.
So the distortion, the melting walls, the weird colors, the shadowy figures.
It's the wobble. It's
Yes.
your own inability to hold the frequencies steady. Seth is very clear on this. He says the distortion is usually your own and not that of the environment.
It's the "it's not you, it's me" conversation with the universe.
It really is. Universe, you're great, you're stable. I'm going through some vibrational issues right now.
Yeah. So if I'm having an out-of-body experience and I see a monster or a scary shadow or everything just looks like it's underwater.
It's likely your own lack of attunement. You aren't holding the note correctly. You're singing flat, and so the world looks flat.
That is actually incredibly empowering, though, because it means the monster isn't necessarily a monster. It might just be a regular person or entity that I am perceiving poorly because my balance is off.
Exactly. It completely removes the fear. If you see something terrifying in a dream or a projection, it might just be your own fear distorting the image of a friendly guide. It forces you to take total responsibility for your perception.
But there is good news, right? Because I don't want to be a terrible tourist forever. I want to be a local eventually, or at least a tourist who doesn't get completely scammed.
Yeah, there is good news.
Yeah.
Seth says each successive projection makes it easier for another such experience to occur. It's a skill. It's exactly like learning a language. The first time you hear French is just a wall of noise. You can't pick out where one word ends and the next begins.
Right. It just sounds like ba ba ba.
But the more you listen, the more you pick out words. The more you practice, the structure emerges. Eventually, you can have a conversation. Seth is saying that exploring consciousness is the exact same process. It takes practice to stabilize the image.
Practice makes perfect. Or at least practice makes it less melty.
Exactly. And this brings up a really important point about patience. In our culture, we want instant enlightenment. We want to take a pill or do a weekend workshop and suddenly have perfect astral vision. Seth is saying, no, you have to work at it. You have to build the muscle.
That's fair. We accept that for playing the piano or shooting a basketball, but for some reason we think spirituality should be instant. Like, I meditated once, where is my nirvana?
Right. So we've got the tourist theory, we've got the vibrational wobble. Now, I want to move to the part of the session where Seth decides to just drop the mic.
The knowledge bomb.
Yes. Seth actually asks them, do you have any questions? Now remember, Jane has a cold. Rob, her husband, is probably tired from writing everything down.
And they say no. They're probably just staring at the clock at this point.
They say, I don't believe so.
And Seth, being the generous teacher he is, says, I will close this one, however, unless you do have anything specific that you wish to ask. And again, they basically say, I guess not.
They are really trying to go to bed. You can actually feel the fatigue in the room through the transcript.
They are done. But Seth says, one point, just one more thing. He pulls a Columbo. Just one more thing, ma'am. And this is where we get the radio analogy. Walk us through this, because I think this is the core insight of the whole deep dive.
It's brilliant in its absolute simplicity. Seth uses an everyday object, a radio. Now remember, this is 1967. Radios were the main tech. There's no Spotify, no streaming.
Dial tuning, static, the little orange needle moving across the numbers, the tactile feel of actually finding a station.
Right. Seth says when you turn on a radio to a particular station and find that it is distorted by static, you realize that the distortion is in the reception.
Okay, simple enough. If I turn on the car radio and it's all hiss and crackle, I don't think the Rolling Stones are actually in the studio hissing at me.
Exactly. You don't assume the band is playing static. You don't assume the radio station has ceased to exist or has spontaneously turned into a chaotic mess. You immediately understand my tuner is off, or I'm in a tunnel, or my antenna is broken.
You blame the receiver. You blame the physical device you are holding.
You blame the receiver. You never blame the source.
But when it comes to reality...
When it comes to reality, or projection experiments, or even just high strangeness experiences, we tend to blame the station. If we perceive chaos, we assume the reality is chaos. If we see a ghost that looks blurry, we assume the afterlife is a blurry place.
And Seth says this same idea should be applied to projection experiments. There's nothing wrong with the station, but with your reception of it.
It shifts the entire burden of proof. It shifts the blame. It means that the universe is likely a highly ordered, stable, coherent place, multidimensionally speaking, and any chaos we perceive is simply a result of our poor reception.
That is actually incredibly comforting.
It is.
Because it means the afterlife, or the astral plane, or whatever you want to call it. It's not a haunted house. It's not a funhouse mirror maze designed to confuse us. It's a real place with real stability. We just have a really bad signal.
And it gives you an amazing tool for exploration. If you are ever in a state of altered consciousness and things get scary or weird, you can tell yourself, the station is fine. I just need to tune my dial. It gives you back control. Instead of fleeing in terror, you can try to adjust your focus.
Tune your radio. I love that. It's such a practical takeaway from such a dense metaphysical concept. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. How do we tune the dial in a human being? We don't have a physical knob on our ear.
That's the tricky part, right? The knob is your focus, your intent, and your emotional state. In Seth's philosophy, emotions are the carrier waves of perception. If you are fearful, you create static. If you are calm and curious, you clear the signal.
So fear is literally static.
Fear is absolutely static. It disrupts the signal entirely. Expectation is another dial. If you expect to see something scary, you are tuning your receiver specifically to the scary frequency.
This applies to regular life too, doesn't it? Not just astral projection.
How so?
Well, communication. If I'm talking to you and I think you're being nonsensical or angry or dismissive, is it possible you aren't? Is it possible my reception of you is distorted by my own mood, my own static?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the magnetic vibration of a bad mood. If you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, everyone you talk to seems irritating.
Hi there.
Are they irritating? Or is your receiver just broken that day?
Exactly. We're always tuning into things. We are constantly interpreting data. We should probably always check our receiver before we judge the broadcast.
That is deep. I'm definitely going to use that next time I'm in an argument. Honey, it's not you, it's my receiver. I'm getting a lot of static.
Let me know how that works out for you. It sounds like a good way to end up sleeping on the couch, but in the astral plane, it works perfectly.
Indeed. It encourages a kind of radical responsibility. You stop being a passive victim of what you see, and you start becoming the active master of how you see it.
I want to circle back to one thing you mentioned earlier about the locals in these other dimensions. Seth says they are attuned. Do they see us?
That's a really interesting question. It's not fully answered in this specific short session, but it is implied heavily in the wider material. If we are tourists stumbling around, they probably perceive us as transient, ghostly figures. Or maybe they don't perceive us at all because we are so far out of phase with them.
Like we might walk through a ghost right now and not even know it because our frequencies don't match up.
Exactly. The radio analogy holds up again here. You can have 50 radio stations in the air right now, occupying the exact same physical space in your room. They don't interfere with each other because they are on different frequencies. We are just attuned to 98.6 FM, the physical body.
And Seth is broadcasting from, I don't know, 1,000.5 AM.
Something like that. A high-frequency interdimensional pirate radio station.
Before we wrap up the session analysis, there is one little behind-the-scenes nugget Seth drops right at the end. It connects back to Jane and her cold.
Yes. He mentions helping Jane.
He says, I have helped Ruburt to some extent in his own projections, though he does not remember them.
This is fascinating because it touches on the idea of unconscious assistance.
We tend to think that if we don't remember something, it just didn't happen. If I don't remember my dreams, I assume I just blacked out for 8 hours and did nothing.
Right. But Seth is implying that learning, exploration, and development are happening constantly, even when our conscious ego is asleep or totally unaware. The inner self is always busy.
So Jane might be out there flying through the cosmos, getting personalized lessons from Seth on how to stabilize her vibrations, and then she wakes up and just thinks, man, I have a weird headache and I need a tissue.
Exactly. It adds a wonderful layer of mystery, but also comfort. You are doing this alone. Even if you think you are failing at meditation or failing at projection, you might be having huge successes you just don't recall yet because your physical brain, the receiver, can't quite translate the memory.
The subconscious is doing all the heavy lifting. It's like downloading a software update on your phone while you sleep. You wake up and the phone works better, but you didn't actually see the code being written.
Always.
Yeah.
And Seth suggests this happens to all of us, not just advanced mediums like Jane. We are all multidimensional beings. We just happen to have amnesia.
And with that, Seth signs off. My heartiest wishes to you both.
And the session ends. 9:10 p.m.
Jane wakes up, eyes closed, pace slow, probably reached for a tissue immediately.
A very brief encounter, but a deeply powerful one.
It's truly amazing how much is packed into 16 minutes. If you read it quickly, you just miss the depth.
That's exactly why we do the deep dive. You have to slow down and really chew on these sentences. You are tourists. Distortion is reception. These are life-changing concepts if you really take the time to integrate them.
So let's bring this all back to the listener. We've covered a lot of ground in a short time, much like Seth did. We need to synthesize this. What are the big takeaways here? If someone asks you at a dinner party, a very weird dinner party, granted, what did you learn from Seth today? What do you say?
I think there are 4 main points to put in your pocket. First and foremost, reality is relative. We make our world stable by focusing on it. It's a collective act of creation. The solidity of the world is not a given. It is a direct result of our attention.
We are the glue holding the physical world together. If we stop looking, the glue dissolves.
Second point, we are tourists. When we explore other states of consciousness, whether through meditation, dreams, or whatever means, we have to respect the locals and realize we don't know the rules yet. Humility is absolutely key.
Don't complain about the food in the astral plane. Don't judge the weird geometry. Just observe and learn.
Third point, distortion is a reception error. Remember the radio. If there is static, check your tuner. Don't blame the station. If your life feels chaotic, check your internal state before you blame the external world.
That's the practical tool right there, the radio check.
And finally,
practice improves the signal. You can learn to stabilize those vibrations. You can learn to see clearly. It is not a special gift reserved for the holy few. It is a natural human ability that just requires training, like riding a bike.
it's a skill, not a miracle.
Precisely.
Yep.
Now, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought that popped into my head while we were talking about the stability aspect earlier. It's kind of a Black Mirror thought.
Oh, go for it.
Seth says we give stability to our system by focusing on it. It implies that without us, the physical world would lose its physicalness. It would become dreamlike.
Yes. That is the direct implication.
So are we keeping this reality alive just by believing in it? And if we all collectively decided to shift our focus, if humanity all changed the channel at the exact same time, what would happen to Earth?
That is the ultimate question, isn't it? If reality is a consensus, what happens when the consensus shifts entirely? It suggests that we have far more power over the nature of our world than we realize. We aren't just inhabitants, we are the projectors. We are the movie projector and the audience at the exact same time.
That is definitely something to mull over while you try to fall asleep tonight. Just don't think about it too hard, or you might accidentally dematerialize your bedroom.
Try to keep the bedroom stable for now. We all need somewhere to sleep.
Before we go, we have to follow our own instructions. We are just the tourists here. If you want to get the full signal, you really have to go to the source.
Please do. Don't just take our word for it. Read the books. We're barely scratching the surface here. Again, this was session 328 from the Early Sessions, Book 7.
You can find it and support the publishers who keep this incredible archive available at sethcenter.com, The Early Sessions. Big shout out to the New Awareness Network for keeping this wisdom in print.
They are the keepers of the archives. It is incredibly important work.
And just a reminder, this deep dive is distributed free of charge for educational purposes. We just want you to think. We want you to question the nature of your reality.
And to explore, go find your own frequency.
So, tune your radios, folks. Clear up that static. Check your receivers. And we will see you in the next dimension.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.